Welcome back to the Dialed In podcast, a very special 20th episode of the Dialed In podcast.
That's when we need the special effects, like
Yes.
the air horn or, but yeah.
Well, we're looking for a pod engineer if anyone want to come and do that gratis. I'm Mo, and as always, I am accompanied by my horological partner in shenanigans, Gene. What do you got on the wrist today for this very special 20th episode of the Dialed In podcast?
For the very special 20th edition of the Dialed In podcast, I am wearing Pepsi GMT.
Ooh, white gold nonetheless.
White gold, which I know is a little, not controversial, but people sort of are not necessarily huge fans, particularly of the price point. But I love it. I think it looks fantastic with blue dials. So, I'm here for it.
Love it. I am wearing my Patek Philippe annual calendar in steel 49471A with a little extra sauce on the dial in the form of a Tiffany stamp. And the reason I am wearing that for this very special 20th edition of the Dialed In podcast is because I associate it with this podcast, because I got it during, like right in the middle of us sort of putting this podcast together and getting our stride. And that will forever be like a memory, whether this goes anywhere or not. I love that aspect of it. Okay, so 20th episode, I thought, that we could do something a little bit different. When we put out that listener survey a while ago, a bunch of responses actually said, let's get to know you and Gene a bit better. So what better to do on the 20th episode than a little Q&A with some help from Gemini.
Yeah.
I promise I'm not that lazy.
What's your favorite food?
Yeah.
Favorite pizza spot in New York?
Watch-related Q&A, but feel free to diverge into your other hobbies. Gene is a man of many hobbies and a lot of different collections. So maybe we can even end the episode with a bonus question about what else you collect and what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as always on the Dialed In pod, Gene, there's no barrier to entry, just a love for watches. And with that, let's get a very special Dialed In. First question. What was the one watch that first ignited your passion and transitioned into a serious collector? And define serious collector however you want.
Okay. This is pretty clear to me. I was, at this time, and this is sort of mid-2000s, I was actually doing some artist management, and I was on tour. And our sound engineer on that tour, and this is a bit funny because in the context of our last episode where we had some thoughts about the Navitimer, he had a Navitimer, which at that time kind of struck me as a serious watch, and I saw it every day. He had two watches that he brought with him on tour. The second one was a Tag Heuer Carrera, which I also kind of fell in love with even more, actually, than the Navitimer itself. So that was actually my first luxury purchase. I came home off that tour and bought a Tag Heuer Carrera, which I still have. It's a little worse for the wear. I didn't treat it particularly kindly over the years, but I still have it. It's huge. I think it's like a 42. It might even be larger than that. Very clear to me, 100%. That was my first entry into kind of luxury watches.
But I guess the question, and I'll reiterate, what was the watch that, I guess it says first igniting your passion, but then it also says and transition into a serious collector.
Yeah.
So after that tag, you were lost.
I was
to the
hooked
game.
after that, and then my next watch was the Sub.
Aha. Okay, fine. That's fair then.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
that was the spark. Yeah.
I'm going to answer a little differently because I was very fortunate to be around luxury watches for a while, but I only really liked them for the flex of it all, as I think we've talked about in previous podcasts. So I had my first, maybe I'll put in air quotes, luxury watch was a Tag Heuer Formula One, which is a quartz, but I was super, super young. I must have been 12 or something like that. It was the blue one, and I loved it. I loved that watch, but it didn't hook me, 12. Then I had my 21st birthday, big fast forward, got a Cartier Santos 100 two-tone that I had asked for, and loved it. Still didn't ignite any sort of like deeper dive into watches. And then all I could think about was Nautilus and Royal Oak. And that is what started it.
Right.
That, because you can go deep in history, and I made my way into a Royal Oak actually as a very special milestone. And I was off to the races after that. I could not stop looking at people's wrists. I could not stop reading about watches. And then I'll give one more inflection point, meeting you, my friend. I thought I was into watches, but I had never really explored like watch nerdery, if you will, and didn't know there was a community of people out there who cared as much, if not more, about technical specs and history and what watches have come out this year. And I think it was when we worked together, and actually, funnily enough, you spotted me wearing a Royal Oak, and it started our whole sort of friendship. You asked me if I don't know if you said, like, what do you think's coming out at Watches and Wonders this year? And I said, did he really just ask that question? Like, okay. And then you asked me, like, what's your favorite talking watches? And I said something like, what's talking watches? And then I think over the next week, I watched 45
Every single
episodes. And that was it. That was really it. Then I was deep. So I'll give you partial credit.
Well, thank you. Yeah. That was actually one of our first like conversations. I mean, we knew each other before that, but I would say like in a more social context, that was probably one of our first conversations.
100%. All right. Next question.
Yeah.
How do you define luxury in horology? And has that definition changed for you over time? If you need a minute with this, I've put some thought into it on my answer, so I can go first.
All right. Yeah. Go for it.
So defining luxury is hard because I think the easiest way to do it is price. I don't think that's the right way, but I think that's how a majority of people would differentiate luxury from not luxury, or maybe mass appeal or whatever you want to call it. But I think when in watches in particular, there's this concept of luxury and mass luxury.
So exclusivity, is that what you mean?
Great word to use. Okay. Exclusivity is a piece of it. I think if we go economic terms here, we can use the term Veblen goods. Are you familiar with Veblen goods? Basically, the concept there is that demand increases as price increases, whereas just obviously the normal sort of adage in economics is that the higher the prices, the less the demand goes right down, right? Like on a supply-demand curve. So Veblen goods are contrary to that concept. And so as the price increases, like I'm mentioning, people think about it as luxury, but then exclusivity plays a big part in that. If everyone could go pick up a Nautilus, it would not be a luxury item.
Sure.
So then we go into Rolex, and there is a false sense of exclusivity there to some degree. Majority of the catalog you can get at Rolex or on the secondary market for a very small premium, right? Like, I'm talking majority of watches.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the Daytonas of the world and,
Sure.
titanium Yachtmasters, and of course, right? But Rolex on its own, the sub, is that a luxury item? So that's how I think my definition has changed over time as I continue to get deeper and deeper into the watch game.
Yeah.
My definition of luxury has certainly evolved, thinking about price, but adding in true exclusivity, and to add one more on top of it, hand artisanship, if you will.
Yeah.
Rolexes are made on an assembly line, right? Machine finishing and all of that stuff. Even a large amount of Patek's inventory and catalog is machine finished. So I think the added element of artisanship takes it to a new level of luxury. And that's kind of where I've come to that answer. What are you thinking?
I would agree with a lot of that. I mean, I do think that luxury for me extends into, the craftsmanship, the finishing. We talk a lot about, other elements like precious metals and some of that. But the ripple effect of all of that does impact price and does impact availability and exclusivity, just because if you are putting that time into, let's say, hand finishing, you're just not going to be able to make 1 million watches. It's actually physically impossible. So,
really good point.
I think the ripple effect of, kind of what I would consider to be luxury, again, those points that I just talked about, they are going to impact price and availability and all that stuff. So,
Okay, moving along here. This is a good one for you to start with because I
Okay.
think you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and I think you have a better philosophy than I do.
Mm.
Do you collect with a specific theme in mind? For example, chronographs, dive watches, a single brand,
Mm.
or is your approach more eclectic? And like, what is that approach?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I would like to think that as I'm considering adding watches into my collection, that I'm trying to be thoughtful about the place that they take in the collection as a whole. So, I mentioned that I was looking at a 50 Fathoms in the last episode. The 50 Fathoms that I'm looking at is a special edition, but it's a dive watch, obviously, but it has no date. I have a sub with date. And so I've kind of rationalized having both of those watches in my collection because one has no date and the other one has a date. And so, together they are like different things. They aren't the exact same in the form of like complication.
Master of practicality over here. Okay, keep going.
But I don't know if I'm just trying to convince myself of like, oh, it has a place. And so I'm not sure if I'm being totally genuine and authentic about that. This is me being a bit more self-reflective about my motivations, but I do like to think about like, oh, white dial versus black dial versus not doing too much that is redundant in terms of what I already have.
Yeah, you have mentioned that to me quite a bit, like redundancy in your
Yeah.
collection. Like throughout the years I've known you, and I think you also you look at complication from what I remember. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
that's
changed,
true.
right? So
That's
like
true.
you're like, oh, I don't have a complication. I mean, I don't have a chronograph in my collection,
Right.
so I need to, that's my
Right.
next watch,
Yeah. Or annual calendar or
right?
whatever. Yeah.
Right. So that's super interesting and,
Yeah.
and very practical and like an interesting way to think about sort of solving for different themes
Mhm.
within your collection and not having too many of those same
Yeah.
themes.
I also don't do a lot of in and out with my collection either. I haven't done a ton of, selling or any of that sort of thing. And so that also plays into kind of the redundancy element. Like it would be easy to sort of say like, oh, I can just get this other chronograph and then I'll just get, I'll sell the one that I have, but I don't do a ton of that. So that's also kind of how I'm thinking about like certain watches having a particular place.
Okay, quick follow-up question on
Yeah.
that. You obviously have a Speedmaster,
Yeah.
which you've had for a long time.
Hmm.
I know you love that watch.
Hmm.
You have a Daytona
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
but I guess black dial, white
Black
dial.
dial, white
Okay,
dial.
okay,
Yeah, exactly,
I'm
exactly.
getting it. I'm catching on. So now, if you were offered a Longa, what's it called? The Longa up down 1815 chronograph.
Yeah.
That's a black dial or white dial. I mean, I guess they make a
Mhm.
couple, but let's say it's a black dial. Does that worry you that like you're gonna have two black dial chronographs, or because that's dress, would you be able to justify
Yeah,
it?
that's probably what I would do. But that's what
Uh-huh.
I'm saying. That's me not knowing if I'm being, totally genuine and authentic to that sort of thing, because I will probably be able to find an excuse if I really want to find an excuse.
Totally fair. Okay. Okay. I think yours is a lot more calculated than I am, even if you're doing some sort of retrospective justification.
Right.
I will say that I don't collect with a theme at all. I am very subject to impulse buying, which I'm getting better at. I fall in love with watches very easily, way too easily. I'm like a sucker for anything, a new dial, a stone dial, and I'm like obsess over it.
Have you ever thought, I mean, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but have you
please.
ever thought about a cooling off period? Like maybe if I wait a week or 2 weeks and I'm still thinking about this watch, I should get it versus like, maybe I'll let this sit and I'll think differently about it.
That's how I do it now.
Okay.
So that is my evolution. So I would say I started out with zero sort of theme, just wanting to sort of hoover up as many watches as I could that I could get my hands on. And also like if you're playing the AD game, you kind of get into this mode of like, oh, what an opportunity to be offered this watch. What an opportunity to give you $15,000 or whatever it is. So I would also fall into that. It's sort of like I give my list, and if something became available, but like came available 6 months later and I'm not so into it, I used to still go get that. Now I'm in a place where I would not say yes to a watch I don't want. save for maybe like an AP house or something, and knowing that a very special watch is coming thereafter. But beyond that, I don't feel the pressure anymore. So I would say my collection ethos right now is more around medals and straps. But I can also I'm gonna conflict this right now because I have my rose gold Daytona on Oyster Flex, which is one of my favorite watches, and it's a chocolate dial.
Mm-hmm.
The next watch I want to get is a 5167R, which is an Aquanaut rose gold chocolate dial on a rubber strap.
Yeah.
So how can I have those two watches in my collection? Very easily. I'm not thinking about it at all. So I can say I have this ethos, and I want to make sure I have, kind of covered on every medal. And so that in any occasion, I would be incredibly happy with the watch I'm wearing. Because sometimes I have an occasion where I pull out my, let's see, like my Reverso, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special association with it. I was in Lake Como and made a 30-minute trip to Lugano, Switzerland. Went to Gubelin, which I'd always wanted to go to. Got this pink gold duo face Reverso, and so it's special to me. I like putting it on my wrist, but I also every time I put it on, I think, oh, I should be wearing another watch. I don't know why that is, but I wish I had. But sometimes it just fits the occasion because it's one of my few now in my collection dress watches. And so I want to get to a place in my collection where I have a watch for every occasion that is my quote unquote favorite watch. That's the ultimate position.
All right.
Yeah. Next question. In your opinion, what is the most underrated brand or timepiece in today's luxury market?
Brand, I don't know that I have a underrated or most underrated timepiece, but brand, I'm gonna say Longa. I just think, as we talked about, the craftsmanship there, the hand finishing. I think the story about how when you take a Longa watch in for repair, just based on the finishing, and the engraving, they can immediately identify the person that worked on your watch.
Awesome.
Is insane and crazy and awesome and cool. And the fact that the secondary market doesn't recognize that sort of thing in the form of pricing, and it's wild to me. So I'm definitely going to go Longa.
Okay, I am going to take a very contrarian approach to this question.
Okay,
and I don't know. The comments would go nuts if we had comments, but I'm going to say the Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar Chronograph is the most underrated timepiece in that category in today's luxury market, which is how it's framed. Listen, the secondary prices don't reflect that.
Okay,
but in today's world, walking around with Patek Philippe dress watch outside of watch people is not impressive, nor do people think about it, nor do people aspire to it at all. People aspire to, even people who aren't watch people are like, oh, you're wearing a Nautilus. Okay, cool. But what's Patek really about? Grand complications, dress watches.
Okay.
So I know by no means, for anyone that's listening to this podcast, is it underrated in their minds, because they rate that pretty highly.
Right.
But I think that Patek as a brand has changed so much in a very short amount of time, or at least the perception of the brand and how associated it is with their sports models, that their dress watches, which for all of time since Patek has been around has been the sort of pinnacle of watchmaking, have now become underrated.
Okay. I can see where you're going with that.
Contrarian.
It's still hard for me to wrap my arms around any Patek model truly being underrated, but I understand the rationale there. So, okay. You're going to have a pass.
I had to differentiate, right? Because listen, Longa, I 100% agree with you. And that would be my answer. I had to pick a brand too. But I just wanted to be a little different, Gene. It's 20th episode. Shake shit up.
I know.
Okay. Next question. What's the hardest decision you've ever made in your collecting journey? A watch you regret selling, or one you regret not buying, or something else? You know what, Gene? I'll take this one first, because I think I've spoken about this on the pod before, and anyone who knows me knows that I wake up in the middle of the night screaming about this. So it was 2017, and I had just bought my Royal Oak. And funnily enough, I was in Material Good, and they were this was pre-2020, remember, right? So it's 2017, so the hype wasn't there yet, particularly around the Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet sports models. There was hype, but nowhere near what it is today, I should say. And so because I was like a good customer at that point and I just dropped a bunch of dough, they were very open to selling me a watch that they were giving me a significant discount on. It was secondary. It was naked, no box and papers, but it was a 5711R, so a rose gold Nautilus on a brown leather strap. And beautiful watch. I can see myself putting it on my wrist at that moment. Any day I want to clock that watch, it's right there in the front of my mind. And it was, I think, listed at the time for like $16K, and I was talking it down to like $12.5K, and we were at a deal. But I talked myself out of it because I had just gotten the Royal Oak. Like literally, 2 months, 3 months before.
I mean, I've heard this story before, but every time I hear the price,
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well, exactly. Now you understand why I wake up screaming about it in the middle of the night. But the thing is like and this goes back to the first question we talked about. Me today, I don't care if I bought a watch that same day. I would take that deal, obviously, right? Like, but it was a different moment. Like I hadn't gotten so deep in the watch game yet. I was obsessed with both the Nautilus and the Royal Oak, and I had just gotten my Royal Oak. So it was like, why? I don't need it. That's crazy. I don't need a second watch. Ha! How wrong I was. Okay. Anything come to mind for you?
I mean, hardest decision for me actually was buying the sub that I got in, what was it, 2011, 2012. I'd just gotten a bonus and I wanted to buy the sub. I went into the store with the intention of getting the sub. But it was it is a lot of money, right? Point blank, period. And certainly for me then, it was a lot of money. And I really mulled that decision over for, I mean, it seemed like hours. It was probably like 5 or 10 minutes as it was just, sort of wearing it on my wrist. Ended up working out that I got a line of credit from Tourneau at the time, and it was like a 0 interest, like 1 year thing. And so I just paid it off monthly.
Can you imagine that happening today?
I know. I mean, just walked into the boutique, it was there, and then got a 0 interest loan for a year.
But that's a big decision.
It was a big decision, and it was not like easy for me back then. But I did it, and so that was kind of the happy ending there. I will say the one watch that immediately jumps into my mind is something that I regret not purchasing, and maybe just kind of recency bias more than anything else. But this was maybe 6-7 months ago. I had found a Nautilus 3710.
Yes, I remember. We talked about it at length.
It had no box papers, which I didn't really care about, especially for a watch of that age and that kind of thing. For a phenomenally low price from a very reputable dealer. And I just didn't pull the trigger.
This
I should have.
Mento watches?
Yeah. It was a great price. And now those watches are going for significantly higher than the few examples that I've seen since then are much higher. So I do regret not pulling the trigger on that.
I regret that for you. Yeah, that sucks. I'm glad you told a story with a bad ending. Like your first story made me seem ridiculous that I told this story about something that I still think about to this day. Like 9 years later. Let's go to the next question. If you had to start your collection completely over today, what would your first 3 watches be?
It's a really interesting question because I'm trying to think about what my first 3 watches actually were, and they probably were, again the Tag Heuer Carrera, followed by the Sub, followed by I got an Oris. Sort of bronze bezel, and
do you still have that?
I do actually. I don't wear it very much. It's a bronze bezel, like a blue sunburst dial. It's very simple, but still a very, very nice watch. I would say that if I did it all over again, my first 3 watches, I probably wouldn't have changed the Carrera or the Sub. So those two would probably be the same. I would say the third watch that I regret, kind of passing on. It was available to me at the time. It is something that I know that we both have some fondness for, which is the special edition, the Kermit that came out with the blue dial, the aluminum, bezel. What was it? 2000.
Wait, blue dial?
Or no, green dial. Sorry,
Yeah, okay.
or green bezel. Sorry, was 2007.
2007, yeah.
I love that watch. So that would probably be my third.
It's a great watch. I've owned 2 of them.
I know.
I own none of them now.
What about you?
So I would start very differently. I would go with, and I don't even own this watch now, but as a first luxury watch, I would say I would go with an Explorer, like a 36 millimeter or 40 millimeter Explorer.
One.
Yeah, Explorer
okay.
1. Simple, understand what a luxury watch is at its base element. Mass luxury, of course, I'll add, but budget comes into play there. Yeah. Great watch. And I think that as like getting your first watch, it should be something you could wear literally anywhere and feel like $1 million. And as a first person, much like the Sub accomplishes, to be fair. Yeah. Right. But I just think the Explorer is cleaner.
It's cleaner. I think it has more versatility. And I think it is a watch that could live in virtually any collection and sit like proudly in it.
Yeah, I will have an Explorer in my collection at some point, and I don't think it'll leave once I get it. I haven't had the pull to it yet, but I know it's such a great watch for anything. Okay, sorry, I'm not going to keep talking like paragraphs on each watch I pick. Okay, so Explorer, I would say, people are going to think I'm crazy, man. The AP Royal Oak. Okay, that I got.
You got it though.
I'm not going to say jumbo. I didn't get the jumbo either. Yeah. Like I got the 15400, which is the 41 millimeter. And I think after having an Explorer, I would have had more respect for that watch.
Okay.
And how I treated it and how much more special it was than the Rolex.
Okay.
Just on finishing and stuff like that. Yeah. And then I would change it up and notice I haven't gone with any complication. I was thinking the first 3 watches, you don't necessarily need a complication. Okay. I would go with a vintage Patek Philippe Calatrava. And I'm not talking about like salmon dials, 96s or anything. When I say vintage, I should really say neo-vintage, like a 5119 or a 3919, if I'm getting those numbers right. Those are just your classic hobnail bezel, white sort of like enamel style dial, Roman numerals, classic dress watch. And those 3 watches, you're good anywhere, every occasion. And you have your formal watch, you have your everyday beat around watch that's still luxury, and then you have your integrated sports, historically significant watch.
Gotta in a 3 watch roll.
Bingo.
Yeah. All right. I'm here for it.
I just came up with that on the fly, by the way. I'm going to think about this tonight and be like, oh my God, I should have said XYZ.
Yeah, you just punch yourself in and re-edit.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Do you have a personal rule or philosophy about the balance between grail pieces and daily wearer watches?
Truthfully, I would like to think that any grail that I add to my collection, I'd want it to be wearable, right? Like I probably have a couple of watches in my collection that I don't wear enough. Mm-hmm. And it bothers me because I'd like to think that nothing in there is untouchable in a way that it's just like an art piece or something that I intend to put on a shelf for display. And I think grails have the ability and tendency in certain cases to be the thing that you put on a pedestal. But I want it to be wearable. So I think for me, while that's not like a phrase that I can distill into something,
dude, that's a philosophy. No, that's a philosophy.
I want to be able to wear it. I want any grail to be, something that I can break out with some level of frequency, so it just doesn't sit in a safe or a case or a shelf.
I think for you, the answer is there is no balance between daily wearers and grails because you want to be able to wear everything at any time you want.
Maybe not every day, but yeah.
No, anytime you want, right? Like you don't have to think twice about it.
Exactly.
Right? No, I love that. And I think that's where I'd say I'd want to be. But I think my true philosophy is kind of what I said in our prior episode, which was that I do buy watches that I think are going to be like my gym sort of
Yeah.
bumming around, grabbing a coffee kind of watch. And then the rest of my watches are like nice and, are impressive, if you
Yeah.
will, and can be dressed up or dressed down, but they're certainly at a certain level of watch that I would not consider ever wearing to the gym or to bum around, if you will. So I do have like this distinct balance, and I even have different watch boxes for them. And sometimes I move one
It's
from
like the
one to the
kids
other.
table
Yeah,
or the adult table.
exactly. It's like big boy watches
Yeah,
and like, oh, that's a cool toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. When acquiring a new piece, what criteria is more important for you? Historical significance, technical movement, or aesthetic appeal?
This is a really hard question because I think that what I would like to be able to say, in all honesty, is that it's the history and the technical achievement and the finishing and all that stuff, and those things are important and they're factors. But their aesthetic appearance is probably something that I don't admit to as being as big of a factor as it probably is. Like I do need to like the way that a watch looks.
Totally.
And so in that sense, a little superficial. But with the backing of and with those other things as being factors.
Yeah. Okay. So the way this question was framed was when acquiring a new piece,
Yeah.
right? So we're talking about actually buying the
Yeah.
piece. I have all the respect in the world for historical significance and technical specifications, but I'm not buying a watch because of those things.
Right.
I'm not putting money up. I will talk your ear off about it. Like I happen to love the way the FP Journe Elegant looks.
Right.
I think the technical specs behind it are incredible. And these are not mechanical specs, these are quartz, but still like pretty amazing what they've done with it. When I want to buy something, it's because of how it looks, feels on my wrist.
Right.
And I'm going to look at it and be super happy about the fact that it's on my wrist. I'm not going to look at my watch and be like, oh man, I love that the movement I can't see right now does XYZ and is, master chronometer and is, that's not what it comes down to when buying a watch for me.
Right.
It's great if those things come along with the
Sure.
aesthetic appeal. And I should say they factor a little bit in, right?
course.
Because you wouldn't just go buy like an AliExpress watch because they've made it look really cool, but
Exactly,
everything inside is
exactly.
shit. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So I think it plays a role, but certainly not the determining factor.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think aesthetics plays a far more significant role than I would like to necessarily admit, but it's true.
Next question. We're getting to the end here, by the way. And the last two, so there's 4 more left. The last 2 are kind of nice sort of enders here. Beyond the obvious safe bets, which contemporary watch model do you predict will be the future classic or investment piece in the next 10 to 20 years? So let's name like what the safe bets are. Like any Daytona, like the Panda Daytona will be a safe bet 10 to 20 years from now. I would say, I don't know if the Cartier Crash will have, all right, long-standing appeal and investment piece 10 to 20 years from now, but it certainly is right now. I don't think any Omegas.
Okay.
I don't think the Silver Snoopy, for example, which still sells over retail, will have the same.
No.
Yeah, in fact, 10 to 20 years from now. Okay, I'm going to name this one, and I don't think this is a safe bet, but you can call it a safe bet and I can pick another one. But I think the Vacheron Steel 222 that came out recently is a good investment 10 to 20 years from now.
Okay. I wouldn't consider that a safe bet. It's a safe-ish bet, but not a safe bet in sort of the context of the way that I think this question was framed.
Right, because you also think about like the past 20 years of Vacheron. Like, that's a roller coaster. I mean, who knows if that is going to be cool 10 to 20 years from now. Cool, and when I say cool, I mean like cool and have a price on the secondary that matches it, you know?
When I think about eliminating safe bets and sort of just crossing off the obvious off the list, what it means to me and what it signifies to me in the form of this question is this idea that maybe it's something newer, like a newer release, maybe not having the history that we can lean on in terms of just identifying it as a safe bet for the future. If that's the case, then I'm going to say something that I know is controversial, Um, I'm gonna go with Code.
I
Um,
love, I
I'm gonna go with Code the
effing love that.
Perpetual.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I'm gonna go with.
Dude, I love that. I would add the Star Wheel to that.
Star Wheel is really cool,
You
by
know,
the
you can
way.
get it under retail.
It's a really cool watch.
It's
Yeah.
wild to me that Code Star Wheel is under retail in the secondary market. That is,
I wasn't even thinking about that, but I totally agree with you on
but
that
I'm,
one too.
dude, the Code was the perfect way. Cause it's funny, you know, when the Code first came out, people were throwing out that the Code is the new, like, oh, the Nautilus wasn't appreciated when it first came out. And then look what happened to it. I think the first iterations of the Code are crap and like those won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But to your point, like they just put the new perpetual
They're getting better
movement in.
and better.
They're beautiful watches. It's just, it's unfortunate that it's labeled as the watch you have to get a Royal Oak.
Right.
And I think like, even if you look at the one I had and no longer have, I bought it because I actually liked it. It wasn't because I've been trying to develop a relationship there, though it didn't help me, just to be clear. I bought the steel Code with the ceramic mid case that's like shaped like the Royal Oak.
Yeah.
Super cool smoked dial, like fume dial. They are doing some really cool stuff in that line. I'm very happy you said that and very jealous that I didn't think of that immediately. That's a great call.
Thank you, sir.
I kind of want to come up with another one now because that was so good. Okay. I don't know if I can call this future classic or investment piece. And I'm not even going to name a piece, so it's kind of a cop-out. But I think Moser has shown in the last few years an incredible growth and awareness, particularly in the watch community, of course. But I think over time, they're only going to get bigger.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not already, they're going to be at Watches and Wonders. They're going to have more and more appeal. Like, and everyone's been calling them the next Journe for a long time. I think that realizes at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I mentioned this Endeavor something pop, whatever they call it, on the last episode with that lapis lazuli dial and the other stone, the lemon sub-seconds. That's one of 20. I think something like that will be a great purchase for 10 to 20 years from now when Moser is coming out of everyone's mouth as some of the top brand. So that's maybe a controversial pick and people can be like, nah, never getting there. But
no, I think it's totally reasonable and we'll see.
All right. 222 is a stupid one. I almost want to edit that out, but I'm not going to because we're authentic here. What do you think the single most common mistake new collectors make when trying to acquire a watch as an investment? Which is very tied to the question we just answered.
Yeah, I think the mistake that most people make is they purchase without actually liking the watch themselves on wrist in their own lives. They purchase watches because they're told that this is what you're supposed to have and this is what you're supposed to buy and this is the most popular thing, without having a personal attachment to it. The biggest mistake.
I think that's right. And I'll add context of people buying watches and investments now, right? Like in the last couple of years, the common mistake they make is that they look at, I mean, it's the same thing with stocks. Like, you know, the past is not prologue, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not going to dictate what happens with future returns. And so your first mistake, idiot, is buying a watch for an investment. Don't do it. Right. But like, let's get aside from that commentary and just say like, if a Nautilus is now worth $120,000, a 5711, I don't know where that goes in the future, but it's not going much higher. There were a lot of Nautiluses out there.
Yeah.
You know, I think people get the common mistake that I'm circling around here and I'll land the plane is I think people get caught up in hype.
Oh, completely.
And a true investment is that you have to kind of know that there was scarcity there. And with scarcity comes investment value. If there are a limited amount of things out there, then you're likely, as long as the sort of collector community coalesces around the idea that this is an important watch, then it's it's a decent bet. But if you're buying it because it's hyped, like the Celebration dial, if you bought that at $25,000, the Celebration dial OP, I don't know. It could be good investment. It could be worth like $70,000 in 20 years. I don't know, but that's certainly not why I bought it. So that's where I think is people get caught up is hype. Okay, last two questions, Gene.
Right.
You ready?
Yeah.
If you could only keep one watch from your entire collection, but it has to be in your current collection, you can't just pick a new watch, which one would it be and why? I'm going to answer this first, okay? Give you some time to think. I would keep, and I know I bang on about this watch a lot, but my rose gold Daytona on Oyster Flex with the chocolate dial.
Of all the watches you have.
Yeah.
Even those that you're attached to for some level or degree of sentimentality. That's the one you would watch. That you would keep.
That is filled with sentimentality.
Okay.
And the problem is I buy a lot of watches for sentimental reasons and tie them to occasions and times in my life. And so I could say that about a lot of watches. But where it really nets out for me on that one, there was a moment in my life where I was going through a lot of like good changes, and my career had really taken off. And this was something that I never thought I would be able to buy on my own. And like literally with earnings of my own. I'm not talking about dipping into like family money or whatever it is, right? And that's the first watch I did that with, truly. And I worked up to, and I developed a relationship on my own. There was no connections. It was all done on my own. And it was a culmination of a lot of things I had done out of brute force on my own. And every time I look at that watch, I remember those achievements. I remember that inflection point in my life. And I kind of look back on that as a time where, maybe to making this too dramatic, but everything changed. My approach to things in life, the approach to how I go get things in life. And it opened up a lot of doors for me by even being able to make a purchase that big and to have gotten there the way I did. And that's why I'd have to keep that. It's a very tough decision. I have sentimental attachment to the Royal Oak. I have sentimental attachment to the Patek we were talking about earlier, but that's the watch.
Okay. I'm going to say Panda.
Wow. Very recent purchase.
Pretty recent purchase. And the reason why is somewhat similar to what you just said. I look at that watch and I see the journey in it. Like I worked for that watch.
Yep.
And I waited for that watch, and it represents patience and effort. And I got it for retail, which is almost unheard of.
Hey-o.
And I just think that I look at it and I see the steps, I see the level of like investment that I made in terms of not even just like the watches that it took to get there, but just my own evolution as a watch collector. It's all kind of encapsulated there. So I'm going to say Panda.
It doesn't hurt that it's the perfect watch, too.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, man. Last question.
Grand finale.
Assuming you plan to pass your collection down laterally, wherever, what do you hope that collection communicates about the history and passion of horology, is how it's worded, but I would potentially even change that to what it communicates about you.
I would hope that it would communicate the level of kind of care that I put into not only the watches themselves, and I say that in the context of just what they mean historically, how I kind of kept them and maintained them, but also just the thoughtfulness. And we've talked a little bit about that over past episodes, just the way that I put that collection together as I currently have it. I just hope that there's an understanding of the way that every single piece fits and why it's there. That's what I want it to be. Just that level, degree, and depth.
I like that.
What about you?
That I was a fly motherfucker.
Of course.
Yeah, no, I listen, it depends where I pass it, right? Which is, I framed it kind of weirdly, where it's like pass it down, pass it laterally, pass it to like like I have no kids right now, so I'm gonna like think about it as passing it to my nephews,
Mm-hmm.
and all I want to be to them is this cool uncle
Yeah.
who is kind of mysterious. Like they don't see the hardships in my life. They don't see the bad moments. They only see the good.
You just fly in.
Fly in for some fun times,
Yeah,
some
some
like
sushi.
some sushi. They love sushi, yes. Some sushi, some comments they probably can't make in front of their parents that I'm just like, yeah, say it all. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're not getting in trouble in here. It's a safe space. And so I look at it like I want one. Yes, like this guy was, what the hell was this guy doing that he has this many watches and they're all kind of badass,
Yeah.
And I also want them to know that life is fun.
Yeah.
Like life doesn't have to always be so serious, and you can celebrate milestones with physical things, whereas they're growing up in a world right now where everything's digital, right? And everything's ephemeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the idea of there was something in this man's life that he was incredibly passionate about that, yes, can indicate success, but not really like articles about you in the business world do or anything like that. This is something that he cared enough about, that he got super nerdy about, that really meant something. And not only did it mean so much to him, but then he chose to pass it on to us. And that is a responsibility that I bear now and want to move forward. That's my hope, is that they take on sort of a little bit of the same philosophy I had with watches and carry that into their life.
Yeah.
And don't just like sell them off for parts,
Fair enough. I think the one thing that I'll add is not the actual question, in terms of what I want it to convey, but what I want the reaction to be. I want them to open the box with like wonder. I want like angels' trumpets to play. I want light to shine, like on the faces. I want there to be a sense of wonder.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love it. Dude, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to say cheers to you.
Cheers.
Cheers to us. Cheers to all of you listening out there. Thank you for hanging in for 20 episodes. And we got at least 20 more in us. So I think we're going to have some interviews at some point. We're going to maybe even move to video. I don't know. If we're not, it's
a new world.
It's a big commitment, but maybe.
And then you'll see. You'll see.
But no, really, thank you guys for letting us get to 20 episodes, and we can't wait for what's to come. As always, like check us out on social, DM us, email us. Like you can find all that information on Instagram at the Dialed In Pod. Stay tuned for some fun shit ahead and some more hot takes as always. And we'll catch you next time on the Dialed In Pod.